Hello students, I am explaining chapter number 3 atoms and molecules for class 10 science, and in this video I am going to explain the concept that is laws of chemical combination, where we are going to study two laws: law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion with activities. So let's start with the video. So first we will study what is laws of chemical combination, and then we will move towards the two laws. Scientists observed that substances react in a very systematic way during chemical reaction. So as we all know, scientists were doing the experiments on the substances, chemicals and the matter. So when they were studying the matter, they saw that the substances will react with each other and they will give the new substance. So old substances react with each other and gives new substances, and this is only the called as reaction. So whenever such type of reaction takes place, they told that all the chemicals will react in a very much systematic way. After many experiments, certain important laws were discovered. These laws are called laws of chemical combination. So after doing many experiments, scientists discovered some laws, and those laws are called as laws of combination, where we are going to study two important laws, that is law of conservation of mass, this is the first law, and then we are going to study law of constant proportion, that is the second law. These laws later helped John Dalton develop his famous atomic theory. So after the discovery of these two laws, with the explanation of these two laws, John got the help to discover his very much famous theory, which is called as Dalton's atomic theory, which is very important. So that also we are going to study in the same video. So let's start with the next page. So now we are going to start with the first law, that is law of conservation of mass, or also called as law of conservation of matter, and same law is also studied as law of conservation of energy, because mass, matter and energy, all the terms are related to each other. Mass is nothing but matter and matter has energy. So the same law can be termed as law of conservation of mass, law of conservation of matter, law of conservation of energy. This law was given by Antoine Lavoisier. It states that mass can neither be created nor destroyed during chemical reaction. So what the law says, very simple statement. Whenever a chemical reaction takes place, whatever mass we have, whatever matter or the substance which we have, it will neither be created nor destroyed. So, see here, in a chemical reaction, total mass of a reactant will be always equal to total mass of a product. For example, if our reactants are A plus B, and after the reaction, if you are getting the product C plus D, then whatever number of A and B we have used to do the reaction, amount of A and B, it will be exactly equal to the amount of C and D. So remember, these are called as reactants and these are called as product. So before the reaction we should measure the weight of A and B, and after the reaction we should measure the weight of C and D. So mass of the reactant will be always equal to the mass of the product. So here neither A and B is destroyed or neither C and D is created more. So the amount will be equal, and that can be written like this: M reactant, M means mass, mass of the reactant is equals to mass of the product. Now see the example. Hydrogen reacts with oxygen to form water. How to prepare water? To prepare water, the reaction is H2 plus O2 gives H2O. And to balance here, we have to take half O2. So in this reaction, if 2 gram of hydrogen reacts with 16 gram of oxygen. So here hydrogen 2 gram, oxygen 16 gram, then these two are called reactant. So what is total reactant? 2 plus 16 will be 18 gram of reactant. So then 18 gram of water is formed. And now calculate the mass of water. It should be again 18 only. Yes, and it will be 18. You can see here. What is the mass of hydrogen? It is 1, but there are 2 hydrogens, so total will be 2. Plus, what is the mass of oxygen? It is 16. So total will be how much? 18. So now if you see here, earlier starting reactant were 18 gram, and now the product which we have, that is also 18 gram. So mass of the reactant is equal to the mass of the product. So see here, therefore mass remains constant. So this was one of the example which we have used to explain the law of conservation of mass. In the NCERT book, there is one activity which you are going to see in the next page. So now we'll study one activity from NCERT book, that is activity 3.1. So let's see the requirement. So we should have conical flask, ignition tube or test tube, cork, copper sulfate solution, that is 5%, which is indicating the concentration of this copper sulfate. Then sodium carbonate solution, which is also again 5%, water and weighing balance. So these are the requirements. Now, if you see this diagram again I have took from NCERT book itself. So here this is the conical flask and the ignition tube, the small ignition tube is here, or you can take a small test tube also. Here there is a thread, cork. Now let's see the procedure. Prepare 5% solution of copper sulfate and sodium carbonate separately in water. So we have to prepare 5% copper sulfate solution and 5% sodium carbonate solution in two different separate apparatus or two different test tubes. So how it should be prepared? If you want to prepare copper sulfate 5%, then 5 gram copper sulfate should be taken and it will be dissolved in 95 ml of water. 5 gram copper sulfate, 95 ml of water, so it will become 5% copper sulfate. Same way, sodium carbonate also we have to take 5 gram and dissolve it in a 95 ml of water, it will become 5% of sodium carbonate. And these solutions we have to prepare separately in two test tubes. So imagine this is copper sulfate and then this should be sodium carbonate, that is Na2CO3, sodium carbonate. Now the next, take small amount of sodium carbonate solution in a conical flask. So we are going to take the sodium carbonate solution into the conical flask. So whatever solution you can see in the conical flask, it is sodium carbonate. So say here solution Y is nothing but sodium carbonate, Na2CO3. Now next, take copper sulfate solution in an ignition tube. So copper sulfate solution which you have prepared, this we are going to take in the ignition tube, that is nothing but X. So here X is copper sulfate solution. So this is present in this ignition tube. So I'll take the blue color, this is copper sulfate, and the red one, imagine it is a sodium carbonate solution. Now the next, carefully hang the ignition tube inside the flask so that the two solutions do not mix. So see here, we are going to take this copper sulfate, which is the blue color, into the ignition tube and the sodium carbonate, which is red color, into this conical flask. Remember these colors just I am using to explain you people. Sodium carbonate is not red colored solution. Just you should not get confused. So that's why I am explaining with the help of colors. So sodium carbonate in the conical flask, copper sulfate is in the ignition tube. These both the solutions should not mix at the starting. Remember, these solutions should not be mixed. Now, close the mouth of the flask tightly with the cork. So here in the conical flask we have fixed with the help of cork, so that the chemicals or the gas is formed should not go outside. So here there is a cork. Now next, weigh the flask along with its component and note down the mass. So same this all apparatus we have to keep it on a weighing machine and note down the weighment or the weight, whatever it is you have to note down. Now tilt and swivel the flask carefully so that both the solution mix together. Now once you note down the weight, now what you have to do, take the conical flask and tilt it. Tilt it means a little bit you have to bend it like this. Once you bend it, slowly that ignition tube will fall inside the conical flask and all the solution which is present inside the test tube, copper sulfate, all will come down and it will get mixed with all the sodium carbonate. And here both the solution will get mixed together. Now, observe the changes taking place in the flask. Now, once these both the chemical get mixed, we have to observe what all the changes takes place in this conical flask. Weigh the flask again after the reaction. Now, after some time, now all the chemicals have been reacted each other. Now, take the conical flask, again keep it on the weighing machine and note down the weight. So, already we have weighed at the starting before mixing, and now after mixing, we have to note down the weight. Now see what is observation. A green precipitate is formed. So when we have tilted the conical flask, copper sulfate has mixed with sodium carbonate and we have got green color precipitate. What is precipitate? It is the solid form. The solid forms will be formed in the test tube, that is called as precipitate. Solid particles will be formed in the conical flask. This indicates that chemical reaction has taken place. Very important. So before tilting, before mixing, the solutions were clear. Once we tilt and once the copper sulfate get mixed with the sodium carbonate, we are getting solid particles which are green in color. Means we can see the change in the conical flask, and wherever changes takes place, we can say that chemical reaction has been taken place. The mass of the conical flask before and after the reaction remains same. Now, when we have noted down the mass after the reaction, that mass and the earlier mass, if you observe, the mass inside the conical flask, it is same before and after the reaction. Now we can write our conclusion. Mixing the two solutions produce new substance. Yes, it is clear. Earlier they were clear solutions. Once we have tilted, once we have mixed, we got here green solid particles. Solid particles are nothing but what? Precipitate. Earlier there was no precipitate, but when we mixed, we got solid particles. And the solid particles indicates that new substance has been formed, showing that chemical reaction occurs. The total mass before and after the reaction does not change. The mass which we have measured before the reaction, before mixing, and the mass which we have measured after mixing, once the green solid particle is formed, the mass is same, it is not changing. Hence, the experiment proves the law of conservation of mass. So, because the mass is same, mass of the reactant is exactly equal to the mass of the product. And that's why it proves our law, that is called as law of conservation of mass. And the law states that mass can neither be created nor destroyed in a chemical reaction. So whatever mass was there at the starting, the same mass we got after the reaction. It has not decreased by destroying the chemical. It has not increased by creating the chemical. It is as usual same. And that is only called as law of mass of conservation. I hope you will understand this activity. Now we'll move with the next one. Now we'll see the second law, that is law of constant proportion. This law was proposed by Joseph Louis Proust. It is also called the law of definite proportion. So remember, constant and definite, the meaning will be same, the words are different. So sometimes they may use law of constant proportion, sometimes they may say law of definite proportion, but the law is same. It states that compound always contains the same elements in the fixed proportion by mass. So what is compound? Compound is nothing but the combination of elements. When we combine two or more elements, we are going to get compound. For example, water. Water is a compound. And to prepare this water, we have used two elements. One is hydrogen and one is oxygen. So whatever compounds we have, all will consist of same element in a fixed proportion by mass. Here only we'll take the example. See here, water. Water always contains hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio 1:8 by mass. If you want to prepare water, H2O, you should have two elements which is fixed, hydrogen and the second one is oxygen. In place of any of these, you cannot use carbon. You cannot use carbon. If you use carbon, you will not get water. If you want to prepare water as a compound, then your elements are fixed. One should be hydrogen and the other should be oxygen. And what is the formula of water? It is always H2O. And in this H2O, if you see, what is the mass of this H2? It is 2 gram. And what is the mass of this O2? That is oxygen. If you see water, there is only single one O. So the mass is 16. So the ratio is 2:16. This is indicating, this 2 is indicating H2 and this 16 is indicating O, H2O. So what is the ratio of mass? It is 2:16. Or we can write like this as also, 2 1s are 2, 2 8s are 16. So the ratio can be written as 1:8. So this is the mass ratio. 2 is the mass of hydrogen, 16 is the mass of oxygen. So it is called as mass ratio. So if you take hydrogen and oxygen in this ratio, then only we can prepare H2O. If you increase the mass of oxygen, you may not get H2O. If you increase the mass of hydrogen, then also you may not get H2O. If you want water as a compound to be prepared, then always the ratio of mass of hydrogen and oxygen must be 1:8. Remember, 2:16, it is nothing but 1:8. Both are same, just we have cancelled. 2 ones are 2, sorry, it should be 16. 2 8s are 16. So the ratio becomes 1 is to 8. Don't get confused. Come back to the notes. Water always contain hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio 1 is to 8 by mass. Just now I have explained. H is to O. Hydrogen is to oxygen is 1 is to 8. 9 gram of water always gives 1 gram of hydrogen and 8 gram of oxygen. This proves that it is having constant proportion. Another example of ammonia. In ammonia, nitrogen and hydrogen are present in the ratio 14 is to 3. Remember, what is the formula of ammonia? It is NH3. If you want to prepare NH3, then your one element should be nitrogen and the other element should be always hydrogen. Then only you can get ammonia. What is the amount? What is the ratio of mass? Nitrogen is always 1, hydrogen is always 3. You cannot take nitrogen 2 or hydrogen 4. Compulsory, if you want to prepare ammonia, nitrogen should be 1, hydrogen should be 3. Then what is the mass of nitrogen? It is 14. What is the mass of total hydrogen? It is 3. Hydrogen, for one hydrogen mass is 1, total we have 3, that's why it is 3. So the ratio is 14 is to 3. I hope you are understanding. So in NH3, the mass of nitrogen is 14, hydrogen 3 hydrogen, so it is 3. So this is the ratio. If you take nitrogen and hydrogen in this ratio, then only you are able to prepare ammonia, that is NH3. So here I have written N is to H, nitrogen is to hydrogen is 14 is to 3. This is called as law of constant proportion. You can take any compound, say CO2, or you can take C6H12O6, that is glucose. These all are compounds. So to prepare glucose, you require element carbon, hydrogen, oxygen that would be in the same mass. This is the ratio. 6 is to 12 is to 6. So this is fixed. Remember this. So this was a simple law which is called as law of constant proportion. After this, we are going to start with atomic theory. Now we will start with Dalton's atomic theory, which is given by John Dalton. So this theory is given with the help of earlier two laws, that is law of conservation of mass and law of constant proportion. So let's see. Proposed by John Dalton, it explains the laws of chemical combination. So see the postulates, what are the main points of this law? Remember, this law is very important. Many of the times this question will be asked. Write the postulates of atomic theory or explain atomic theory. At least nearly 4 to 5 points you have to remember, which are very simple. See the first point, matter is made up of atoms. All matter is made up of tiny particles called atoms. So as we have already studied in our earlier two chapters, matter is made up of small particles which are called as atoms. And remember, these particles are very, very small, which we cannot see by our naked eyes. Second point, atoms take part in chemical reaction. Chemical reaction occurs because atoms rearrange themselves. So whenever a reaction takes place, these particles, nothing but atoms only take part to form a new substance. Third point, atoms cannot be created or destroyed. This is the law, which is law of conservation of mass. So whenever any chemical reaction takes place, atoms or matter or mass cannot be created or destroyed. This explains the law of conservation of mass. The fourth point, atoms of the same elements are identical. They have the same mass and same chemical properties. Yes, it is correct. If you imagine hydrogen element, then in this hydrogen element, all there will be only hydrogen atoms. All will be hydrogen atoms. Say H, 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 all are hydrogen atoms. Then this hydrogen atom, this one, third one, fourth one, all have same mass, that is 1, and all will show same chemical properties. So remember, atoms of same element. Now if I take the example of oxygen, then the atoms will be shown as O. Then all the O will be having same mass, same property. But remember, the properties of hydrogen and oxygen are not same. The mass of hydrogen and oxygen is not same, but the atoms of one same element will be same. Now the next one. Atoms of different elements are different. They have different masses and properties. Yes, clear. Atoms of different element. Now we can take example, one element hydrogen, one element oxygen. Hydrogen atom is H, oxygen atom is O. Both have different mass. What is the mass of hydrogen? It is 1. And what is the mass of oxygen? It is 16. So mass is different, Even the properties are different. So remember, atoms of different elements are different. Atoms of same elements are identical. Very simple. Next is that is the next sixth point. Atoms combine in a simple whole number ratio. Just now we have seen this law, that is law of constant proportion. Whenever a compound is formed, always these atoms will combine in a fixed ratio, fixed whole number ratio. They will never combine in fractions. Like if you want to prepare water, there should be always two hydrogen and one oxygen. We cannot take 1.5 oxygen or say 2.1 hydrogen. No, we cannot take in fractions. Always our atoms will mix or will combine in a whole number ratio. And the last point, number and kind of atoms remain fixed in a compound. Every compound has fixed composition. If you say H2O, the number of hydrogens are 2, oxygen is 1. It is fixed. We cannot take 3 hydrogens in water. If you want to prepare glucose C6H12O6, C should be 6, H should be 12, O should be 6. If you change any one of the atom, then you cannot get glucose. So remember, number and kind of atoms remains fixed in a given compound. So these are the points of Dalton's atomic theory, which are very easy to remember. And remember, this theory is very important for exam point of view. So I hope these all the points which I have explained you will understand very easily. You make a note of these all the points in your notebook. It will help you to prepare for your exams, tests, etc. If you have any doubts, you can comment those doubts. And if you like my videos, share my videos with your friends. And if you're getting little bit also help from these all the videos, then please consider subscribing my channel. Thank you so much.